at Highview Maples. I'm fourth generation on the farm. One of my kids, my son lives next door. My daughter will be moving home at some point in the future. So there is another generation coming. So we're organic, bird friendly, and we're a carbon offset farm with Cold Hollow to Canada. It's kind of cool right now. We're redoing this. The carpenters are here. And just to let you know, like the pile of lumber you passed, it actually came from like a mile away. So it was planted, harvested, milled, and now we're using it back on the sugar house. And this is first built in 1946. So we're just kind of fixing it a little bit as we go along.
I'm Ali Kasiba. I'm at UVM Extension, so I'm a professor of forestry there, and I am the state extension forester. And I focus on climate change impacts to forests, also forest carbon, forest health, all sorts of stuff like that. I am not an expert in sugarbush management in terms of sap and syrup production. So that's where, the combination of our expertise. I'm more of a what's going on in the forest, tree health, forest health, thinking about how we can make decisions in our forests to enhance the long-term resilience of our forests. So that means like providing biodiversity that helps, birds that help then eat insects, that control insect populations, having nutrient cycling as far as having dead and decaying wood is really important, reducing erosion from water, all that kind of stuff that does then translate hopefully in long-term economic viability of sugar bushes, right? So thinking of that long-term planning. I do have like lots of things that I brought, so feel free to take resources, guides. I write a lot on forest carbon. I write for Northern Woodlands. I see your hat, so I often get Northern Woodlands magazine, and I've been writing a feature series of Northern Woodlands on carbon, and we then published it, Northern Woodlands published it in this standalone guide. I also did write a series of fact sheets with a couple other folks at UVM on specific sugarbush carbon. It's basically the same concepts, but focusing really on maple production forests. And then I have things on climate resilience, all sorts of stuff. So feel free to take some for your friends and family, Conservation Commission if you want to take stuff. So I think with this small group, it can be pretty casual, our walk. We have a couple spots we wanted to look at. I came out here with Jessica and Carrie, and it was fun to see what you've done out here. And so, yeah, it's kind of be a little bit of conversation, whatever we want it to be, I think can be pretty flexible. So,
Again, right?
yeah. We could talk quickly about, that's a key part of resilience. And it sounds like, if you're all both in Cold Hollow to Canada, you have management plans for your properties, which is awesome. Because actually about 75% of sugar bushes do not have management plans. Right?
I didn't realize that until I just read maybe something that you would.
Mark Isselhart did a little survey on that. And it's because you can enroll in current use, sugar bushes can enroll in ag or forestry, and ag does not require a management plan. But sugar bushes are managed long term. And so there's such an importance. First of all, a forest management plan lets you know what's in your forest, right? An inventory, the soils, the trees, sort of stressors, issues, vulnerabilities, but also that long-term planning is really critical. So it's one of those things I really encourage folks to think about having a forest management plan, and NRCS does provide cost share, also provides cost share for helping thinking about road maintenance, water quality, things like that. And of course, it's on everyone's mind, heavy rain events that we've been having, right? 6 inches, 8 inches is not uncommon the last number of years. And so really, I think every landowner should be thinking about water, where that water's going, and how to mitigate some of those risks. And so things like having drainages and dips. And I do think I'm a little bit on the stance of trying to get away from culverts. Culverts are such a vulnerability. They just get clogged. And yes, they are really easy to put in. They're expensive though. It's really hard to size them appropriately. We even have these guidelines of sizing them, and then that's not sufficient. And so you know, it is a good tool, but they get clogged so easily. And what happens when they blow out catastrophically, right? The water goes around them, they're gone. The culvert might get washed. I mean, I've seen this where it's like 50 feet downstream. So if there are other things you can do, like a bridge, you know, it is more money, but it will be more permanent. And then places where you don't need to travel when it's wet or it's not, you know, kind of perennially wet, things like water bars, dips, things like that. I love broad-based dips, those are really good. But it is a little bit harder in a sugar bush if you need to access during that mud season time. So there's lots of resources for thinking about water movement.
So this is where it's kind of hard for me because this is actually like one of my least favorite sections to tap. I swear the whole time I'm tapping in here, but then I'm like,
Because of the beach?
It's good for the birds. Well, yeah, and it's hard.
Yeah.
Because it's just hard to walk through.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to tap, and especially if you're on snowshoes,
Yeah.
it really sucks.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I'm like, there's a lot of hobble bush in here, a lot of beach, and I'm like, you know, fine. You know, it's better habitat for the birds.
Yeah.
But there is, from here up through, it's a lot of beach through here.
Yeah. Yeah, and that, you know, speaking of regeneration, right, beach is something that it's a tough thing because it's a native species, we love it, but it's so been impacted by beach bark disease. Now we have beach leaf disease, but it's the most shade tolerant hardwood we have, so that it can persist in the understory without a lot of light, even more shade tolerant than sugar maple. And because it's, you know, beach bark disease causes the trees to root sprout, these are attached often. Sometimes they can be a seedling, but they're often attached to a parent tree. And so they grow a lot faster than the seedlings, and they're gonna get beach bark disease because they're genetically related to the parent tree. So it's this kind of, you know, tough cycle to break. Some places it's, you know, so bad that all you see is just a wall of beach, and people call it beach hell because it's just, that's it. And so you do, you know, there are places where it takes intervention, either cutting those mechanically or using herbicide on the stems. And that can cause, you know, anything, because they're all root sprouts, it causes everything attached to that to die. But that, you know, in an organic sugar bush, you can't do that. It can also be dangerous because trees, even across species, can root graft, and so other species near there can get residual damage. So it's a tough thing. I mean, you know, we don't know what beach leaf disease will bring for sure. It is affecting the younger beach leaf disease, so it's a nematode, if you don't know, but it is affecting the smaller trees first, sort of going from the understory to the overstory. And so, will that alter the dynamics? We don't know. It is worrisome because it is such an important food source, especially for bears, but also deer and turkey. And, you know. Well, it's mostly in southern Vermont, but we did find it in Jericho, actually at the UVM, research forest. We don't know how it got there. You know, I will say that, so there's a number of ways we think it gets, it's this tiny nematode. It can get like blown in the wind, rain, bird droppings. It's found in bottoms of shoes. So the Jericho Research Forest does get a lot of students. Is that the reason? We are like really don't know, but it's this isolated spot. It's kind of a little hill where it was found, so prevailing winds could have brought it. We really don't know exactly how it spread around, but it's spreading pretty fast. So if you go to like coast of Maine, Connecticut, Massachusetts, it's dramatic. It's really shocking, actually. You're in the woods and this, like, you can tell the beach looked very unhealthy. Some, especially the younger ones, are dying. So there is research going on in Connecticut to look at silvicultural prescriptions that could help. So thinking about thinning out some of that understory beach, can that limit the spread of the nematode? But yeah, it's so new. We're really kind of catching up to figuring out actually how does it move, what does it do, what are the impacts of this. So yeah, it's a tough one.
So there is a method to my madness. You'll see piles of tubing beside the road. So, especially with the organic, and just because I don't like it, I've been pulling all the tubing, because in past, all they did was to replace something, they'd cut it and drop it.
Yeah.
So, last several years, I've literally, I'm working up here, I either cut it up, put it in my bag and take it home, or just drag it to the road. I was supposed to come through with a tractor, pick it up. Haven't got there yet, but it's coming. That's why it's in piles, though. So none of this is new. This is at least 10 years old on all of this tubing. I don't know. Tubing lasts for a long time.
I think
could
they
probably
say about
find some in here.
15, right?
I was gonna say, so
Yeah.
when I was a kid, this is actually what we stored it in.
Right.
So when I was a kid, instead of having it hanging up all the time, we used to actually pick it up every year. It had dog tag on it, and you can still see the marks on the trees. And so we'd come through in this, well, in the spring, you'd have one person that would go out in front of you, and they'd literally, sometimes the roll of tubing would be the length of your arm. And then you'd have to like find the right tree, and then they were Ys. And so like you'd roll it out, like, damn it, I missed the Y. You'd have to roll it back up, roll it back out the right way. And then another team would come through, and you'd have one person running the drill, and then one person actually putting the spouts in. And then in the spring, we'd come back through, roll everything back up. My grandfather and I would come through with a tractor and a load of like bleach water, and we'd soak the tubing, and you'd sit there for an hour. And looking back on it, I was like, I had an hour, and I had like all day in the woods with my grandfather. So that was the best part of it. And then we'd store it. This is the old freezer, which is now just a landmark. But you'll see there's a few other basins around in the woods, and that's what we'd store them in. So, every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, it is. It's a huge amount of work. And so definitely the time saver. And then too, the length of it. So now, of course, we run, 5 to 7 taps per 5/16 line? I mean, I am not joking when I say the roll of tubing covered my arm. And you'd have 20, 30 taps per line. And then actually before that, they used to run the tubing on the ground when they first started. My grandfather, again, was one of the first ones that actually started using lamb tubing. And when they did it, of course, it was later in the year, and they were still using buckets, which was later. So they wouldn't put them out until more like March. But the tubing literally was just run on the ground. And then my grandfather, of course, was like, maybe we should tie these up. So he started actually tying them up. And then, so it just kind of kept evolving from there. So, and then you will still see a few buckets. Those I kind of purposely don't pick up, because sometimes you get a little discouraged out here working. And then you're like, it could be a lot worse. So, my grandfather started in about 1961. Yeah,
That's early.
yeah, he was really one of the early ones. Yeah. But then again, I was just walking with somebody else too. I mean, this was tapped with buckets in this section. And so I literally can say, like, easily, I have tapped some of these trees my whole life.
Yeah.
But this forest has been here that long, and we've tapped. You can see some obviously have come down. But overall, I mean, you're talking, well, it's 125 years that we've been tapping here almost. And in this particular section, easily 75 years at least that we've been tapping some of this. So.
I don't know.
Any logging done on the site, commercial logging, or just
Just home logging. Actually, that was what my grandfather was. He was a logger. He was actually a wood sawyer. And he had a logging crew, and that's what the cabin is. He used to have it. He's actually over in Cold Hollow in Enosburg. Or no, I think actually that one came from Maine. That came from the Piston Farm of Maine. So my grandfather always logged, and then we had, a few other people that would come in. So it's been primarily managed as a Sugarbush, but in hindsight, my mother said this. She says, well, your grandfather always kept woodpecker trees. You know, they weren't called snags, they were woodpecker trees. And so he would purposely leave one just so that the birds would necessarily go to that one and maybe not go to, you know, a healthier younger tree. And he always did keep a wide variety of trees, which is why I still have a big diversity in the sugarbush, even though it's been primarily sugaring for 100 years.
That's cool.
So
yeah, and that's a key part, even though that's not exactly why your grandfather did it, like key for resilience, right? So having woodpeckers means, like as I mentioned, it's like they'll help control the insect population. We know that. They're really good signs to see in the woods because they're eating, you know.
And there's a downy that's following us.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little curious. But dead wood is also this thing that is missing in a lot of our forests. People have this tendency to clean up the woods, right? Tidy, want it look very clean. We now know how important dead wood is. So, right, it's returning nutrients to the soil. I mentioned, though, we talked about water. It's a great strategy, right? Like, so this log here, you know, as water's coming down the slope, it slows down water, stops leaf litter, you know, traps. You see that the uphill will trap things. Of course, there's like, you know, mosses and amphibian. I'm sure there's like newts under, you know, like all sorts of things, insects, fungi, like all these parts of the forest that help. You know, we want every cog, every wheel represented, and so that keeps things in balance. And so thinking about that of like, okay, is this a tree falls naturally, maybe leaving it where it is, or it's a low value tree that isn't really worth pulling out of the woods? Can you just leave it where it is? Because it is a missing component. A lot of our woods are pretty young because of our agricultural history, and also that tendency to tidy things up. It's interesting. Folks are now thinking about adding big pieces of wood back to streams, because again, we cleaned a lot of that up, and we now realize, oh wait, that means the water just goes a lot faster. There aren't pools for brook trout like there would have been. And so that's a really cool thing that's happening. And then from carbon perspective, right, it's all carbon. And so that's great. You know, big pieces of wood like that take a long time to decompose and give space to other trees, right? If you wanna do any release of some of your crop trees, you know, and it's not worth it to take things out of the woods, just fell them and leave them. Tops of trees are really good to leave to protect seedlings from deer browse too. So there's a lot of different reasons why we can think about leaving some of that stuff in the woods. It can have a lot of overlapping benefits for sure. So I love seeing that. It's great your grandfather did that.
So when I did get the land conserved, part of it I donated the easement for it, but in return I actually did get like a 6-acre lot. And so the way it was laid out on the map, there was like a little triangle that came over on ours, and it's literally like my side of the brook. So my dad always wanted it, my grandfather always wanted it, so that was part of the old Atlas plywood. And so anyway, that was just part of the deal. I ended up getting the 6 acres, which is what this is. It takes you down to the little stream. And so then the forester has come in and he's marked it. So we'll come in and it looks like whatever he's got marked, we'll try to take a few logs out.
Yeah.
And like what we did with the red pine down there is basically he just took enough to pay for his cost. And then plus I did take the extra for the lumber for myself.
Yeah.
And of course firewood.
Firewood, yeah. Well, just one thing to say about, so Sugarbush forest management it requires different planning than if you just have a wood lot because of the tubing, right? And so doing, before you set up the tubing, that's 15-year life cycle, thinking about thinning, doing some silvicultural treatments before that, because then you sort of get a little bit tied to what the infrastructure is. Or then if you're thinking about replacing, when you need to replace tubing, that's a great time to think about, okay, what should I remove? Because we know that looking in here, there's a lot of stems, right? Like it's pretty dense, and that's true for a lot of our forests. So thinning out, doing some crop tree release, which is essentially like releasing the crowns of your crop trees, and that can help create light to the forest floor that then helps regeneration, right? Like as we're walking, I've been noticing where we get a lot of the sugar maple regen, you know, it is a shade tolerant species, but it needs some sun. And so having those openings in the canopy help, because what we know is that when it's really dense, beech is gonna outcompete it. And so that's you know, and that's the whole part of it, having a management plan, getting to know your woods, all that kind of stuff. You do need to be sort of 10, 15 years thinking ahead because of the infrastructure you have.
So now this is my next section, but at this point I've spent a lot of money on the interior of my sugar house and my equipment. And so now I'm gonna go between a rotation of fixing an old part and adding on a new part, because I can probably still add on another 4,000 or 5,000 up here. This was tapped when I was a kid. This was a lot of fun on snowshoes. A lot of fun.
Why don't you just put
Yeah,
this in
no.
buckets?
Yeah, oh, I should have. Anybody that says snowshoeing is fun does not come
Oh,
to
it's
Yeah.
fine.
So this is the one culvert that we put in when I had the road work done.
Yeah.
And then the 2 water crossings are up above there. But this was like a really, really wet area, as you can see.
Yeah.
And so instead of keeping it muddy, and it just would get worse and worse over the spring, over the sugaring season, because we do bring our tractors up, because we try to start at the top. So we'll bring the tractors up, bring the crew up, because instead of walking a mile and then trying to tap, let's save a little energy.
Yeah.
So, but this has actually held up really well. So this is since 2019 and it hasn't moved. So this section here, we'll see a bigger impact of it. This is still some of the edges of where the forest caterpillars went through like 4 years ago. And this was one of the bands. And so above it and below it, it didn't really bother it. There's still a few trees in here that I probably should have taken out that were hit by it. But that's, and we'll see a bigger thing down there, because it's opened it up that much, I am seeing a lot of small maples in here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they were bad enough to have the caterpillars, but if I look long term, you know, and that's the thing, like, I mean, I am 4th generation. And so my grandfather didn't try to tap everything. My dad didn't try to tap every last little tree that we had. We always kept young stuff, and we always made sure we were the size of the bucket, because it does make a difference on the health. And so I want to do the same thing. And like, I'm not going to get to tap some of these trees, but my kids, my grandkids are going to. So yeah. I am lucky. And like I said, for a long time, I was really discouraged. I was like, oh my God, I need more hunters. How can I get them here? But now I do see a lot of seedlings. I mean, right now you don't, because it's not here, but no, in the spring you definitely do.
Yeah.
And you'll see farther down, you'll see a wider opening that we actually did go in and cut a lot out because of the caterpillars.
Yeah. Yeah, and that gets to resilience, this idea of insect that comes through, windstorm, right? Drought, something that happens, and thinking about, well, what would be the impacts, and do I have something that can replace that overstory if something came through? So yeah, and that stuff is, you know, can't really control it, but you can think about ways to prepare a little bit, have some insurance, you know, to encourage that. I had a question. So thinking about your lack of regeneration, in these areas where you're doing these groups or patches, were big beech cut out of here, out of those? Or like, okay, because that does, so one thing when we cut beech, it triggers that same response that beech bark disease does. And so I've actually been doing this on my land, just experimenting with it, and other folks have, is girdling those trees. Because from a tree perspective, you're basically cutting off that supply, especially if you do it in the summer, right? Trees are taking in, when they're photosynthesizing in the summer, they're bringing in carbohydrates and then eventually they're storing that in the roots. And so that allows this sugar production for sprouting. If you can sever that process by girdling with a chainsaw or just, you know, some way to get in there a little bit, half an inch, it limits that. And I have seen, and I kind of want to do this a little bit more scientifically, I was just experimenting with it, there's reduced sprouting. And what happens is those trees die pretty slowly, so they're snags. They might not be woodpecker trees because they don't die the same way normally, but it does bring light into the canopy floor, so you get that. So there's other, you know, thinking about that, or what folks have done, I saw this at Marsh Billings, they have a huge problem with beech. When they cut the big beech, that's when they applied herbicide. But again, you couldn't do this in organic sugarbush, but they applied just that basal cut stem, and that prevents sprouting. You do have to be very careful because it's, you know, anything that attached to that root system will get damaged. But there are some other ways, because it does cutting down that stem. I mean, it's amazing. Beech has this adaptive response, right? Like it will never die. You know? It's pretty amazing, actually, right? If you think about it. So one thing I love seeing in your woods, Jessica, is conifers, right? So we got red spruce and we had some hemlock, or there's hemlock around. And so there has been research that if you have a higher diversity of non-maple, it actually reduces the impact of pests and disease on the maple, because those host, you know, birds that then, you know, there's all this great stuff. And so, you know, it is growing space that they're taking up, but if it can then help reduce impacts on your crop trees, hopefully that, you know, that helps people think about it. So I love seeing that. I've heard from, you know, bird biologists how important those conifers are, because that's safe space for them to be in, and they'll go then feed on the yellow birch, or if they're, you know, feeding on snags or whatever, and they'll kind of go back and forth. And so having those, really, really awesome to see. So I love seeing I think most of our forests, a lot more of our hardwood forests had conifers, and we do know that they were really heavily logged, especially red spruce. Like over 90% of our red spruce were logged, because it's a great species for, you know, milling and floats and all this stuff, but we really lost it on the landscape. And so it is really coming back, and you see a lot of it regenerating, which is super cool.
Well, I actually really like, so, you know, we are Audubon bird friendly. Yeah. And so obviously I was new, they were here, I could hear the difference. Now I'm almost to the point I'm like, I can pick out quite a few different species. Not warblers. They're their own category, they're just warbler. But it is interesting that I can come through the woods, and this section in through here is a really high area for warblers. Yeah. And then there's a couple of main lines over that way that I can guarantee I'm gonna have hermit thrush down through there. And so there's just different pockets, and then you look, and it is a little bit, just enough difference of species that are in that area for all your different types of birds. Yep.
Would you mind giving like a little recap and like overview of these various programs and things?
I know she's like rolling everything.
Yeah, but I have help over here.
But there's so many.
Yeah, it kind of snowballed. And I'm not even sure how all it came. It started with Nancy. It's all Nancy's fault.
Sounds
so
right.
Nancy came, and I think she invited me to do this Richford Woodlots, which is a sub-organization of Cold Hollow to Canada. And that's a community-based program where we literally have neighbors, and we're now also doing, like, you know, combining a couple of towns together. And about once a quarter, we meet on somebody's property, and we do literally a woods walk. And so sometimes it might be a forester that comes, sometimes it might be based on silviculture. We might look at, you know, salamanders on a different one, or birds. Mushrooms, that was a cool one. So it started with that, and then Nancy's like, so have you ever thought about conserving your property? And I'm like, yes. And I had no clue what a process it would be to conserve, and you don't understand that, you know, hey, I gladly would donate my easement for it. It still costs money. you know, and there's still the surveying to do and the legal work and the filings and all that. And so it took years to get mine done, actually. A lot of that extenuating circumstances. And that's where, like, I had joined the woodlots, and then I went on with the Cold Hollow to Canada and became more deeply involved with that. So Cold Hollow to Canada actually had a grant, and so they offset the cost for me to conserve my property. And so somewhere in amongst that, I actually ended up becoming on the board of Cold Hollow to Canada, and I'm probably 8, 9-ish. I'm longer than I think I am on the board. And so I was on the board for Cold Hollow to Canada, which Cold Hollow to Canada is a local organization, and our goal is to conserve 23,000 acres by 2030. And we're just about at that halfway point. We have a few pieces in the pipeline right now that are going through the process that I went through for conservation. And so once we get those, we're actually going to tip over the halfway point, which is really exciting. And it's been permanent conservation. And there's all kinds of different groups. So mine is actually conserved through the Vermont Land Trust. And now that we've gotten a lot of the bigger parcels, now we're going back in with the connectivity, which is a big part of Cold Hollow to Canada. And so not just the bird habitats, but also your large mammal, your wildlife corridors. So that means, like, I don't want just my big piece and like Matt's bigger piece, but we want Dan's smaller piece because he's got that connectivity in there. And we don't want, you know, a housing unit put up on Dan's that's going to break up where your wildlife flows. Which, I mean, obviously we have a lot of black bear up here, you know, signs of hopefully lynx, bobcats, your deer, your coyotes, etc. So then the Cold Hollow to Canada, they're the intermediary person. They're the going between the landowners and the people that have the money that are going to help us to be able to conserve this, because it does cost to do the conservation part of it. We also are now partnering with other organizations that are willing to come in, and maybe there's not one big, like, 400-acre parcel. Maybe we have 4 parcels that are 50 acres apiece. These other organizations will come in and they're willing to fund the conservation as like a kind of a group collective effort on those. And so then also as another subset of Cold Hollow to Canada, Matt and I are with the carbon offset program. And so again, we took that, we're not a big, like, out in the West, so we don't have huge tracts of land, but collectively we have a large tract of land that we're all willing to say, you know what, we're going to conserve it for our lifetime and beyond, and manage our forest so that we are helping with the carbon reduction overall. And so that was a pretty good long process. And for myself, yes, I did get money back from the carbon offset program because people are paying for the carbon credits. They're voluntary credits. And I have actually used that, which is why I have, you know, worked on the sugar house, and I'm going to work on the improvements on, you know, the equipment inside. Everything has gone right back into the farm. But there's a lot of things that I've learned along the way. So there's the carbon offset, the woodlots program, Cold Hollow to Canada. Somehow I ended up on the Richford Conservation Committee, but that's a local one, you know, and that is, we obviously have deep roots here, and that's my way of trying to give back to my community. And then the carbon offset program, and then also with that, Cold Hollow to Canada. Actually, no, before Cold Hollow to Canada, Audubon had started the bird friendly program, and Steve Hockenbach had reached out to me, and Steve actually has done my assessment on the property. He's the one that I went all the way up to the top and went around, and I was like, Steve, there's roads. And no, you went from point here to point here. You went through the blackberries, you went through the blackberries. Yeah. But it was incredible. And so all of this has just made for this collective learning experience for me, so that I actually have learned so much about my own property that I never would have thought about before. You know, and it's little things like, I laugh. I can almost tell a couple of warblers apart. Couple. I mean, I can definitely tell an ovenbird from a warbler now, but, you know. And then with the last thing, I guess, is NOFA, so I'm part of the Northeast Organic Farmers Association. And the really cool part for me is with all of these different layers of management styles that we have in the forest management plans, and being involved in the Audubon program and NOFA, I haven't had to change anything as far as how I'm doing for management style. We never tapped small trees. We always were concerned about the health of it, which is why we're still sugaring 100 years later. Well, actually, it's 1903 is when we figured we first started sugaring. My great-grandfather bought the place. But we really have not changed our management style. So I was very lucky that my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, they managed it for a long-term outlook. And they never, ever have they never took everything that they wanted. They always have left something for the next generation and the generation beyond that. And that's just how we farm. So.
And that's the thing, a lot of those, it's like stacking those goals, right? That they are compatible. Things that are good for birds, also good for the climate resilience, also good for carbon, also our requirements in, organic sugar. So that's the nice thing is that, and that's how we should be managing any forest or sugar bush, is not, okay, I'm only gonna manage it for this one thing. We know from history that's usually not great, right? We might make decisions that aren't the best for the ecosystem, but we overlap these goals and think a little bit more holistically. So it's awesome you're doing that, kind of stacking those things together.
Well, and like a few years ago, Grandfather Bear literally lived at my house all summer. He sat on the lawn, and if he didn't think you were home, he was he'd walk between my house and my barn. But that's just it. I live in their backyard.
Yeah.
This is their home too. Yeah. And so that's why I don't get shook. I'm like, it was a bear. Oh, well, okay, I forgot to take my bird feeder in. I'll take it in, okay. But actually it was very polite bear. He really was. He didn't bother my beehives at all.
Well, that's nice.
So, but that's just it. I mean, we need to learn, and there needs to be some kind of a balance.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have that, and I just feel better about being that way.
We depend on forests more than they depend on us. So recognizing that, is really important. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, and I come home after work and I can tap about 300 a day myself on good weather. Obviously snowshoes, reduce that way down. But then of course the kids can come home and I'm finally like, guys, you have to come home for the weekend and tap. Both of my kids are, go ahead. I don't realize how well you train your own kids until you have other people that come in and work and you're really, really exacting and they're like, I'm not gonna work for you anymore. And your own kids are really, they just go out and do it and you're like, maybe I was a little tougher on them than I thought it was. So this part of the woods isn't the biggest maple section straight through here. It's got a lot, yes, but it's kind of one of the coolest parts because of all your huge glacial rocks.
Yeah.
And just how I love some of these rocks. Yes, I have favorite rocks and favorite trees in the woods.
Yeah.
I guess I have a question about soil. You talked about the earthworms can kind of over aerate the soil, it sounds like. Do sugar maples are people testing for organic matter in a similar way to how they're doing in an agricultural field? What are some good soil characteristics of
For sugar maple?
Yeah.
I mean, they are our species, pretty much our species that likes the most nutrient content. They really need a lot of calcium and magnesium. So we talked about indicator species. You can usually see, so there's some understory plants. We can't see them right now, but if you came out in the spring, we can see maidenhair fern in those spots, blue cohosh, there's other species. Seeing ash trees, ash is also a very rich, we call them rich site indicators. White ash needs those conditions.
It's actually an ash right there.
Yeah, so there's a bunch in here. Basswood is another super good indicator if you see basswood, but it doesn't mean sugar maple can grow on less rich sites, but it does the best on those rich sites. It grows the best. It's most competitive, produces the most seed. There's a lot of things that we see regenerates better and has more viable seed. Even sometimes we see on less rich sites the seed will be produced, but it won't be viable. and so it won't do anything. Yeah, so there's a lot of other effects. As far as the earthworms, so yeah, I mentioned earthworms are not native. I mean, they're, you know, we love them in the garden because they make nutrients really available, but because they're not native here, our trees did not adapt to them. They didn't evolve with earthworms. So what earthworms do is they release nutrients like nitrogen really quickly, and so they can get leached from the forest, especially where we have slopes, and then they physically break up, right? They burrow, so they break up the soil. We have fungi in the soil, mycorrhizae, that actually attach to tree roots. Really important to help trees access water and more nutrients, and we know that the earthworms can actually break up those connections. And so, you know, it's one of those things, you can't really do much once there's earthworms in the soil, but it helps to know if they're there. One of the indicators, I mean, I don't think you have earthworms here. One of the indicators is if you don't see leaf litter, because that leaf litter gets decomposed really quickly. And then what you'd see too is if you pulled back the leaf litter, okay, so I have really nice, look at this like duff layer, decomposed leaves from past seasons. This is so great, right? Like this is, I mean, it has been wet, but this is nice and moist, tons of organic content. If there were earthworms here, it would look more like coffee grounds and be kind of like little lumps in there. And so, but you see like there's a lot of roots that I just, sugar maple, these like feeder roots, these are what access water and nutrients. It's not what anchors the trees. They're not that deep. They're in the top foot or two of the soil. And so that's what's really critical. I think, you know, a lot of people think, oh, the roots are going really deep. They can to anchor the tree, but accessing nutrients and water is pretty shallow. So yeah, so that, like this looks beautiful, right? You see a lot of decomposition, pieces of wood, pieces of leaves, carbon. Half of the carbon in our forests is in the soil. So really, really important to keep it where it is.
What are some of the strategies that
Yeah.
both in this program? I personally don't really know how to do it anything other than let the trees grow.
Right. So
Do you have a strategy?
I would say, I mean, number one is keeping forest as forest, right? We convert forest to something else, to a development parking lot. We not only lose the carbon in that forest and often like excavate the soil, which again, really important. And then that land doesn't contribute to sequestration in the future. As far as like what to do in managed forests, I mean, things like I've mentioned with climate resilience, diversity is really good because we want to think about not only the carbon now, but that we have carbon in the long run. So having younger trees that can replace overstory trees if we have a disturbance. Keeping soil where it is. So reducing erosion is really, really important. When we have erosion, we are essentially washing that carbon down into our streams, down into our lakes, and it goes through different chemical processes. So keeping it where it is. We can do things like harvesting wood for long-lived products. You know, of course we need firewood, that's great, and that keeps stuff local. But if we can build buildings with wood, that's carbon that's getting locked away, and we're not using some other products. And so, you know, I love that you getting wood locally too. We're reducing transportation distances, which is fossil fuels. And so thinking about that. So, you know, this stuff is all tied to like forest resilience, carbon, but it's like our community resilience too, right? Of having local wood products that we can use, supports our local economies, supports all the folks that work in the woods. So it's all really like, there's so much synergies with that stuff. So, but yeah, there are other strategies we can do. It depends a lot, again, like on the forest itself of what exact like tweak we can make to enhance carbon on the site. But those are kind of the basic concepts, yeah. And that's why you said like your management was in line with those carbon goals, because you're pretty light on the land and
Yeah.
doing that kind of stuff. Yep, focusing on diversity, age composition, all that kind of stuff, reducing stressors. Yep.
If you were like this, is this like at its maximum carbon theoretical? Or what like percentage of a theoretical carbon are we seeing right
Okay, so there's two different metrics when we talk about carbon. There's carbon storage, so that's the amount of carbon in this, say, an acre of woods around us. And then there's carbon sequestration, which is the rate that those trees are adding new carbon to their storage. So the analogy I use, carbon storage is like the money in your piggy bank. Carbon sequestration is like your deposits, right? And so that can vary. And so right now, this could have much more carbon storage. We know that old growth forests have the most carbon storage because they have big trees store proportionally more carbon. They just have really big branches, really big crowns. And when you get more packing, and we do have that, when you have different layers in the forest, different types of trees, so when you have conifers with hardwoods, that's when you're really maximizing carbon storage. Older forests have more developed soils, more dead wood, standing dead trees, dead logs on the forest floor. But carbon sequestration does peak at it peaks at like middle age. So this is probably, I would bet this forest is sort of like tapering off, but it's probably still like sequestering quite a lot of carbon because the trees are they're still competing with each other for space and trying to grow bigger, right? Like a lot of these trees could grow quite a bit bigger. And so that's, sucking in a lot of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and storing that carbon in the trees. It's cycling a lot of that carbon into the soil. So this is still, has a lot of potential for both sequestering and storing more carbon, for sure. Yep. Yes. Piggy bank, yeah, great way to say that. Absolutely, yeah, yep.
So I'll pass this around to you guys. So this is actually a picture of the original sugar house. It was built in 1946, but it's kind of cool because it's before that culvert went in.
Oh, yeah, right.
So you can see the before and the after.
Is that firewood hauler, was that original, that little trolley system you have out there?
So that firewood hauler is for manure. It came out of, it was from a barn, and so it would have had an actual flat bottom on it, like a solid bottom, and probably 3 sides on it. And so they took it out of, repurposed it, and they made it into a firewood hauler. So you'll see what we do is we just open the door and take the trolley out. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh no, we love labor.
You want to look at this?
We love
Yeah, you
labor.
love labor.
It's great.
And how much, who cuts your firewood?
So the loggers that did the, that pulled out my lumber for me, they're the ones that pull out our firewood. And then my husband and I, and usually our son, are the primary woodcutters. We did have those guys block it for us, so we're just splitting it. But that's where you saw the tractor on the way in. So that's, because my dad's house is the one that's up there on the hill. So. Constantly, literally everything's under transition. This just used to be the entryway, but because I had the Airbnb and the harvest toast, then I was like, well, I really need to make it a little bit nicer of a farm stand. So I just do have everything available. It's all honor system. I have a canning room in here, which I'll show you in a minute. So I'm wholesaling probably 2/3 of my crop, and I'm retailing about 1/3 of it right now. I do mostly mail order, except for what I do here as far as farm stays. And so this year I have, upgraded a little bit in here. It's still working on it here. Yes, I have a really gorgeous Ethan Allen cabinet in my farm stand.
Are you making you're doing the sugar and what's the maple vinegar? I've never seen that before.
So we'll get to the vinegar room over here.
Cool.
So I was looking for a cabinet, and then of course I was on Marketplace. So for $150, I have a gorgeous Ethan Allen.
Wow.
And my husband's like, "You're brand new sugar house?" But I'm like, I'm not going to go to Walmart and buy something. I'm going to buy
That's beautiful.
this.
Yeah.
Okay? So yeah,
You'd pay that much.
yeah, it's unreal.
Yeah.
So we'll go this way, and we'll kind of come back, and we'll end up back over here. So there's another picture of my grandfather. So the cool thing about this one is if you look at that load of logs in that truck, that has less of a frame than what Matt's truck does out there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
it
they
looks
used to
pretty
haul logs like
overloaded.
this, okay?
small tires.
So then the other thing that people have
Did
asked.
he log those with horses, you think, or how did he get
Probably a lot of these were
Yeah.
pulled out with horses.
would
If
be
you
fun.
look though, there's a log jack when you come in, and that's what our sign is on. And he used to use a bulldozer a lot. But the name of our road is Stevens Mills Slide Road. Stephen actually was the name of the mill that was at the bottom of the hill. There's an old white house down there near the railroad tracks. That was Stevens, his last name, his mill. This was a slide road because they cut the logs up here and slid them down. And so that's where you get like East Richford Slide and Stevens Mills Slide. So,
Very cool.
And I have a suspicion they also used oxen, because
yeah.
this spring, when I was tilling the garden, I turned up an oxen,
Oh.
horse, shoe horses, oxen shoes, yeah.
So actually above here, there was another mill. If you go another like 2 miles up, it was the Lewis Mill. And there was an entire settlement up there. And literally everything. Like they had a blacksmith and, I forget how many houses were up in here. There were actually 14 men that came off this road to go into Civil War. So we had that many different families up here. And like this farm itself was actually originally 4 100-acre peat lots that different families had. And then they were put together, which is why, as anything in Vermont, like that's the Bliss Field. Well, why? Because 120 years ago, the Blisses owned it. So
Right.
why would you not
Yeah,
continue
yeah.
to call it the Bliss Field? So there is a lot of that
Yeah.
history.
That's cool.
So I am working on my certification for the Vermont Maple Association as well. And so I do have to have a bathroom in here. And then there's, a bunch of other stuff to go along with the certification for that. So we did add on this tank room about 10 years ago. And then we've finally been finishing it off. You can see we've still got the scrap pile everywhere. But this has made a big difference. We have more
Yeah.
capacity in our tanks. This was kind of the final piece, is the new releaser, which just came this week.
Cool.
So we're gonna replace, it's over in the corner. Over in the other corner is our vacuum pump, which is now an electric vacuum pump.
Okay.
And then in this little room here is our reverse osmosis,
Okay.
which used to be in the main part of the sugar house. So this is actually like our third reverse osmosis. My dad was one of the first ones back in like 1982
Wow.
that put a reverse osmosis in, because we used to tap 10,000. So 10,000 back when I was a kid was actually one of the largest sugar bushes in the state.
Wow.
Now it's literally a drop in the bucket.
Right.
It's tiny. It's like a backyard operation now. But I remember being down here. My parents would literally be here for days because we had one of the glass line milk tanks. They used to sit here. It's like a 3,000 gallon tank. And I remember it flowing over. And so they'd have to stay here. We had 2 arches
Yeah.
plus a finishing
Wow.
propane tank to put the
So
sap
much
through.
work.
Yeah. And it was just days and days. And the amount of wood that you went through
Oh
was
yeah.
unbelievable.
Well, in that photo of the old sugar house, that's just stacks of wood.
Yeah, and it was
Right,
out
yeah,
around
of
the side, too.
Yeah.
Okay, it was crazy the
Yeah.
amount of wood that you went through.
Yeah.
And so as we keep going in efficiency, I am going up between 16 to 18% on my sap. But I was only going 12 to 14%. Once I got new pans in there, I did find it went through better at 16 to 18%. I'm not finding any difference on the quality of it. I will say that's one of my big things. Literally, if I won't eat it, I won't make it. I'm done. Once the flavor changes, I'm done with it. And I'm not going to serve it to somebody else.
Yeah.
I'm really picky about my flavor.
Do you know about the new maple syrup grading lab at UVM that Marcus Hart just started? You can send in samples and get it graded for the clarity, taste, all
Right.
the viscosity, all the stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is cool because it really isn't. It's really just down to the individual sugar maker to say whether it's up to their standards or not. And
Yeah.
some people have different tastes or don't taste every batch or.
And it does depend
Yeah.
on what you have for soil content.
Absolutely,
My
yeah.
dad actually was a buyer
Yeah.
for Butternut Mountain.
Okay.
So we were one of the first customers that Butternut had. We used to go to Dave's house and take our syrup over to him. So Dad did actually have to go through some certifications to be able to do it.
Right.
And apparently I started really young. And apparently I wouldn't have anything but fancy, and I just turned my nose up. They also do say, of course I was born in May, and they do say that my mother drank more maple syrup that spring than she ever has in her life. So I did come by naturally. So yeah, I've replaced everything. The arch itself is still not the original arch, it's the second arch we've had. But I left the arch, have all brand new pans on that. And then like I said, we do have the wood cart that brings it in and out. But little by little, piece by piece, the last like 5 years, 5-6 years, we've replaced all the equipment inside. So now from here, now I'm gonna start working on the woods. And yeah, you can see like, I do want to insulate because it does get cold because it is an airtight front now, but we do still leave a lot of the old pieces as much as we can in here. Dad did reduce it down. This used to be a 3-story sugar house. Dad took the roof off, dropped it down, so it's like a 2.5 story. But originally you had vents in the top of your sugar house, and that's how your steam went out because you didn't have any of your hood system that was on top of it. We've added efficiencies as we can go. Like I said, we've actually, it's our 3rd RO, and literally every time you change an RO, they're half the size and they do twice as much, it seems like. So we just have a little small thing now. But it used to start right here where that table is, and it went all the way through to the back wall. And they were horizontal tubes that they went through. There was like 4 big tubes that we had. And then of course we reuse the water and do all our cleaning and stuff like that. It is a steam away hood. So we're also taking more water out as we're boiling. So for me, wood is actually the most renewable resource there is. Yes, we have the labor to put into it as far as cutting and splitting it. And it does take more, like I, have to spend a little bit more time at the end of the night. But you kind of get into a routine of it. And so it's not a big deal. It takes me like an hour for startup. But it's like you get the fire started and you go do other stuff. And then you boil. And then on the other end, like when I'm shutting down, I have it pretty well timed that I know how much sap is in my tank. And then I can just, and I'm like really fussy with it. I'm like, no, not that stick, that stick. Then but you really do. It's like you really get to know your wood pile pretty well. And even when I stack the wood pile, you stack it for what you've got in your pan. And so then by the time we're done, we're actually done. The cool thing this last year, so my daughter will be home at some point to come. I was gone for like 13 years. And my dad's like, you coming home? I'm like, yes, Dad, I'm coming home. And Julie will come home too. But Ian has moved in next door. So he's 24. Finally getting out of that stage. But this last year, to really watch him come on, and he's obviously been around it his whole life like I was, and it really was. He was doing the boiling. He's an engineer, so sometimes he's a little more specific than his mom is, and mom's just like, come on, it's kind of like cooking here, but he's like, yeah, but blah, 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 and I'm like, stop using that. So, and because we do have automatic draws and stuff like, well, why is this doing this? I'm like, doesn't matter, just do what I say. But he genuinely, like when he made it, and then people were around here and they were trying it and they were drinking it. And he was really careful with how he did it, the whole process. But you could literally see pride that he had taken in making that product. And he's the same as me. He's like, this is my dad, this is my mom, this is my grandparents, this is heritage, family, this is heritage. Cool. And to see him have the pride in that, that's awesome. So then going back into the rest of the sugar house, so this is also kind of cool. That's my canning room in there. So like I said, we do retail about a third of the crop. So what I can do is half of those still have syrup in them. I can actually heat a 40-gallon drum at one time, and then I hot pack it back into the small containers. So that's what I do in that room. This is actually maple vinegar.
Oh, this is maple vinegar.
The maple vinegar.
Yeah. Oh, and like white oak barrels? Is that what it is?
So I was in such a hurry. I bought these down around Saratoga Springs.
Okay.
It's an actual cooperage in New York, local cooperage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
He does buy the pine out of a lot of Pennsylvania and Minnesota. I was in such a huge rush that day. I was like, I just gotta go grab the barrels. And then I got in there, I'm like, can I have a tour? And it was awesome. It's fantastic to watch them. They make them by hand. They use steam, and then they And then char, I didn't understand char levels. I've now had a very small lesson in charring. So I have a toast, a medium char, and
So
a
they're
dark
charring
char.
the inside.
They char the
To
inside.
give it the flavor. Okay.
And so then
seal it. Yeah.
the time that it takes for the vinegar to go through the char to the oak, it just takes a longer processing
Yeah.
time. And so then that ages it differently.
Huh, cool.
So I'm kind of also in the process of, I have just changed out. I have a couple of older barrels that I bought. So I've only had it in wood barrels for like 3 years now. They used to be in food grade plastic barrels. But my aging process should be less because it is wood. It's going to be a lot more breathable. I just like it better than the food grade plastic. Now, the actual history on the maple vinegar is kind of cool. It is certified organic, and you have to have provenance to certify it because you're supposed to have this process, like prove that it is organic, okay? I'm like, we've had it for 100 years and my grandmother made it. I don't have a source for this, okay?
Right.
So my grandmother got the original mother from a friend of hers.
Okay.
And so real artisanal vinegar is made from a mother.
Yeah.
You can also make flavored vinegars by having white vinegar and adding flavor.
Right.
That's not what this is.
Yeah.
This is authentic vinegar. We have the mother. I've kept it alive for 100 years.
Yeah, cool.
And you just take pieces of it and just start a new batch
Are
of
you
it.
using the sap or are you using syrup?
Syrup.
Oh, okay.
So, and actually, not that we're cheap, we just don't waste anything. So literally, it's like when I finish washing or canning my syrup, I use fresh water from the house and I clean my pans out.
Yeah.
So you have your sugar water.
Okay.
I use the sugar water and turn it into vinegar.
That's, yeah.
And then
that's
this
cool.
year,
Yeah.
as I'm trying to increase my capacity for my vinegar, I actually took my sweets when I got done boiling at the end of the year, and I took the sweets from there and put it into my barrels so I can have more.
Yeah.
Because I used to only have like 1 or 2
That's
barrels.
awesome.
You're making vinegar.
We're making. So
Well, you need the
vinegar.
mother. That's-
So vinegar is made from a
Yeah.
mother.
I've done like apples. You can make apple cider with apple scraps. But yeah, you have to have a mother. You can either, sounds like they have their own, you can take a mother from other vinegar. It has to have that like, it has to be the raw. Yeah, it's that like, it's a,
And again, I'm going to blame my
yeah,
carpenters.
exactly. Isn't it a symbiotic?
It's only
Is that
November,
weird?
so we don't actually have to have this ready for like 3 more months.
So cool. Oh boy, oh boy.
Crash.
Things are
So-
falling.
So this was the old reverse osmosis room.
Oh, and
Yeah.
this is now the
I've
This
never
is now
seen
my
maple
vinegar room
vinegar.
because
vinegar room.
you can't let your mother die because you
Oh,
don't want to let
cool.
it freeze.
See how much money I have in my Venmo.
Like it's bacteria or something? Or
Here,
fungus?
I'll show you the.
Show us the mother.
So
Dude, it's slime.
Yeah.
this is mother.
Yeah.
So that's the mother.
Yep.
It smells
And what it does is it eats the sugar
Yeah.
in
Turns it into yeah.
the syrup, into
And
the
that's
sweet
what
water.
turns it into, like,
And that's what
like
turns it.
fermenting.
Yeah, it fermented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah.
So you had to,
That's so cool you've kept it for that. That it's that it's that long. Oh,
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
You're feeding it.
You feed it.
Yeah.
And so I never actually completely empty a barrel. So I had these barrels first, and then I just have a siphon. It's one thing I have to figure out. I didn't catch it when I bought them. My bungs are here.
Oh.
I need to figure out if I can put a new bung in the top. And so, because these have bungs in the top. And it's the same thing.
Right. So you can sample it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this one actually has a pretty thick, like the mother on it is like that
Yeah.
thick on the top. But I just go down through it, use a pump, hand pump,
Yeah.
and just take it out in buckets. And then I can it and then I bottle it. Yeah.
You reheat it to.
I do reheat it, you know, for my own use, no, but because it's, you know, pasteurized, so I do reheat it. I do go to 160 on it.
Oh, for the bottling.
For the bottling
yeah,
part of
interesting.
it.
You can't just do it raw.
You can do it raw, and if I had somebody that wanted
Yeah.
straight up, you know,
do that.
but,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
it's got, and actually it would be better for you raw
Yeah.
because it's got, well, it's your gut health,
Yeah.
your probiotics and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So it's, I think I've actually got it out in the other room. Oh, I've got a sample of it out there for you guys.
Yes, I've made the from really ripe cucumbers.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me
Yeah.
of. It is vinegar.
Yeah.
It is going to be sour even
I
though it's
love
maple.
vinegar.
Um,
It's really nice.
And then it does depend. I mean, they aren't all the same color or anything when I have the different batches. And I never know completely what it's
Oh, I
going to be.
like that. Oh, I'm definitely buying a bottle of that. I like that.
I feel like it's gonna be like a good like week.
Oh, yeah. Zing.
Yeah. You get this after the coffee cake.
Well, have you, people do like, you can add it to like seltzers
Yeah.
and stuff like that? To like, as a drinking, like a drink, people are doing that.
Yeah, like
Right,
the flavoring.
the balsamic vinegar, like
Yeah.
seltzer.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Now, how long does it take?
That is so good.
I have always let mine age at least 9 months.
Oh, wow.
So that's why I do always have something going.
You're going.
Like I said, now that I'm learning about chars, we're going to see what the different levels will do. And honestly, from a marketing point of view, it may be like, this may be the reserve barrel if I do the darker char on that versus the toasted char, which would probably be the least amount of time. I think it's going to reduce my time. I think I'm only going to have to do it probably closer to like 4 to 6 months because the wood is so much more breathable. And I think you're also going to get a little bit of the oak in there, and just is going to change the flavor. It will change it a little bit. This came out of one of the barrels in the back.
So
So
Yeah,
this
it's
is
really
the this is the
Oh.
but like it's the only vinegar I use.
Yeah.
And actually, my favorite is a coleslaw.
Yeah.
So, your mayo, I use maple sugar,
Yeah.
a little bit of mustard, salt and pepper, and the maple vinegar.
So good.
But it gives it just that much of a tang. Good thing too with your Greek, your one with your mayonnaise and sour cream and the vinegar,
Yeah, yeah.
cucumbers and stuff. It's
Oh, yeah,
great
yeah.
with cucumbers,
cucumber
just as
salad.
a quick,
Yeah.
like you slice a cucumber and you throw
Absolutely.
it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, I have to show you guys this year's cup.
Oh, and there's hats too.
So I try to actually change it, do a custom gift basket every year.
Oh,
And so
wow.
this year we're doing a breakfast cup.
Cool.
And so I am going
Those
with
are
the whole like
beautiful.
Cold Hollow Canada theme
Yeah.
and then the Audubon one. And so that's a yellow-bellied sapsucker,
Yeah.
which is on the Birders Dozen list. So one cup will have that, and then with the Cold Hollow to Canada Wildlife Corridor program, we have a fox on the other
Cute.
side. So this is just my like trial cup because there's actually two,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but that was like, which style do you want?
Yeah, that's cute.
So cute.
So just kind of a hint back to what we are doing, and I mean this is what I want to do. I want to be able to support, the land. Without the land, I wouldn't have this, and I'm
Yeah.
grateful that I get to live here. It's not an easy life, but at the end of the day, I go to bed and I go to sleep, and I don't worry about things. It's, I don't have to worry about insomnia. Trust me. So.